Everybody, it's Thorfinn here, and today, what I want to do is essentially go over um, each map and how I think the meta of each of these maps have shifted because of the Viper nerf, right? So sort of a post Viper nerf meta sort of recount here. I'm gonna move myself over here. There we go. So yeah, so let's first start with the scent, right? I think now you're gonna see less of these Viper comps. I think you're gonna start going back to the default composition here, right? I still think that you are gonna see some people sort of lean towards the cipher a bit more, but I don't think it's gonna be as much as it used to. I feel like you're gonna see one or two teams, maybe even three, sort of go for the cipher comp. But I think most of the time you're gonna see stick with this sort of standard composition here, right? The Omen, the KJ, the KO, the Sova, the Jet. Now on Bind, I think that Viper still definitely has a place in the meta, but I think that what you could potentially see is a shift over to the Harbor and the Brimstone, right? So I think Harbor is kind of like the next best wall like controller, right? He's really the only one that could potentially fill the gap of Viper. I think where Viper really tends to fall off um, is maps where you have more than one sort of game plan, right? So with Viper, the main game plan here on Bind is pretty simple, right? You go back deep spawn and you throw the toxic screen like this, right? And then you throw the poison cloud right here. So very like standard thing to do for Viper, which yeah, you sometimes tend to pick this orb up, but most of the time you won't. I will say though, there is a drastic change in timing of this. So I could see some teams leaning towards maybe getting rid of the Viper completely and switching it out for a Cypher, right? Going double initiator, um, a controller, a duelist, and then adding the Cypher in there. But I think more realistically, you'd see Harbor. I think Harbor is really good. He can do a very similar thing to what Viper can do, right? But obviously, it's definitely more constant under Viper, that constant threat of this happening. But I also think that if you avoid this specific playstyle here, you could get a lot of value off of like the Harbor. Like you can like the ult, the high tide into late rounds. You could take like deep shower control with smokes and stuff like that, as well as like maybe even see some teams go for something like this, right, where they throw a sky smoke right here at the start of the round and sort of take this space early and sort of deposit someone into this hookah space. But for the most part, I think Viper is probably going to be a pretty big staple. You might see some Harbor gameplay, but it's mostly going to be like Sky, Viper, Gecko, Raze, Brimstone, and then potentially the Harbor. And then you might see some teams like C9 go for the single initiator comp, which I think is just kind of not the right way to go. And I think even C9 might switch away from it. So let's go to Breeze, right? Where I think now the type of composition we're going to see, personally, I think we're going to see a switch to, if we're doing single controller, we're going to see a composition like this, right? And then, hit or give or take, right? You might use the Sova. You might use the Yoru, right? But I also think that potentially what you could see is you could see this, right, be replaced by a Viper for a double controller. I think on Breeze, it's going to be kind of hard to justify the Viper because one of the big things you can do with Viper is you can throw the orb down, pick it up, readjust it to help hold these sites. Also, throwing this orb is kind of pointless Because one of the big things about this orb that's really good is you can go into it, grab it, and then rethrow it nest or rethrow it tunnel, or you can grab it and like rethrow it down halls late in the round. And you can't really do that. You really are you're damned wherever you throw this orb, and if you fuck up an orb, like you're just cooked, right? So I think you could sort of tend to see a shift over towards the harbor, right? The big thing with the harbor is it's gonna make this map play more proactively. What I could see, realistically, sort of a game plan that I have been thinking about playing on this map, whenever I get onto a team for the summer, is tripping halls with Cypher, like deep, right? A deep trip late in the round, like 5 seconds into the rounds, and then you have like a Cypher cam like right here, or like right here, or something like that, and you essentially play retake towards the A bomb site. You maybe even put a tripwire, you got a trap wire like down here or down here, or maybe like towards door, or like this, right? So you can't get ran at, things like that, and playing more proactive towards this mid area, right? Like you could take a harbor high tide, you could cut down the map, you can sort of walk up from here, you can follow it with like Sova dart down here deep into mid. You could also walk up, you could have KO deep, throw a deep flash from like double door or something through elbow to fight it, your jet, and crunch alongside your harbor, um, right, and crunch onto it. So I think that we could see a shift from where most of the time, right, you're sort of anchoring on this setup, right? You have a trip here, well, you have the trip here, I have another trip here, right? And then you're playing sort of like 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Sort of these positions. I think you could definitely see something like more of a 1, 2, like a 1-3-1 on the defensive setup here, right? With a deep trip here. You throw like the one-way trip you throw the trip that's like this, so you can sort of spam from here from back stairs, or even double like bridge or something like that. Or I could see like or I could see like Cypher trip here, um, and then the Cypher trip C, and then you have like your jet posted here on this position with the op, sort of flexing back and forth and clearing balls and clearing up A. Maybe even throw a Cypher camp, check, and then you have your Cypher sort of be kind of your hard B anchor here. You have Harbor play towards this tunnel area, and then you have like someone double up with him. You have someone walk down. You have someone play nest, right? We sort of play like sort of this, right? We play like a 1-3-1 in that way, where you're basically like ready to come reflood and fight fast, or because you have the high tide and things like that, you can throw the high tide from here to here like this, which is really good. So you can flood through double door, and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of how you're going to see Breeze played. But again, I think it's going to be a switch over to the Harbor, in my opinion. I think Harbor gives you just more dynamic things you can do. You also can't really play lineups either, which is why I think it's going to make Breeze a lot more playable, because you can actually play retake towards A. One of the problems with playing retake towards A on Breeze is because of these lineups from all the way back here, and now you can't really play that. So, all right, we're going to go to Icebox here, where I think that this is going to be another double controller map. So realistically, I think that you could get away with something like this. I think you can get away with something like this, right? Where I think this is probably the best comp. Also, I think you can kind of slot that here. You can slot Harbor. You can slot Sova. You can slot Sova here. I also think you could potentially play like Brimstone or play like Astra or something like that, right? So I think that Icebox has definitely more of a diversity of comps if you go through this, right? Um, Now, I do think that there is another option rather than just play double controller, and that is obviously going to be Harbor. So I think that potentially what you could do here is what would be like this situation. I'll put it here. Is like this, right? So you'd play the Jet, and then you'd play the Harbor as your solo controller here. Um, I think that potentially this could work. I also think that potentially you could play Reyna, and then you could put your flex on Sage, and then you could have like a chamber, right? So I think there's a lot of compositions you could do on Icebox, right? So as you can see, like this top position where you'd sort of interchange these are extremely diverse. Actually, I'm gonna throw Raze in there too. I think Raze is also really good on this map. So I think that you can really potentially warrant a lot of composition on Icebox, which makes me really excited, right? So I still think the default composition is going to be something like this. I think Omen and Clove here are going to be the two ones to look at in this composition. This is the M80 comp. If you guys don't know, M80, the NA Challengers team. So you have Omen, Viper, Gecko, KO, and Killjoy. I think that this is definitely the best, but I could see some teams going for the Gecko and Sova, or the Sova and the KO, and then switching off. But I think Clove actually would work really well, potentially, especially with Harbor. Harbor is slotted in for the Viper, potentially, which is why I'd say like you could potentially run double controller but with Harbor instead, because kind of like the idea here is you could take the main, you could wall like this to take yellow control and tuck and insert someone here towards yellow. Sort of the problem with like B site is that you're gonna play off, right? And then you're going to fight on A. So usually you're gonna have one person here, right? And then one person here, or potentially here, right? So if you clear this space and force them back, or kill this guy early, it pulls one of these A rotators, right? And it leaves A weak. Because A is super easy to just take, right? Which is why you play 3 and then 2. So being able to get the first blood over towards B is super important. I think that with this comp, right, you throw like a Gecko Flash throughout with the High Tide, super hard. And you can throw the Gecko Flash up too. You can actually tell if they got out, right? And if they got out, you could potentially have like, you could like speed up the hit and try and catch this guy rotating and stuff like that, with like a Clove smoke or an Omen smoke here, and then you could throw one like right here as well, or you could throw the one where it's the one way right here. So I think there's a lot of different things you can do on this map, but I think it's going to be Omen, Viper, Gecko, KO, and KJ. I think is the optimal comp on this map, but I think Clove for Omen is a valid switch. It just depends on if you have a really good team, a really good like Clove player, right? And you have good ideas for that DK, comboing it with a KJ Molly. And like there's a lot of mollies on this comp to combo this DK with, which is what it would work really well with, right? Like KO Molly, KJ Nano Swarm, even like a Shock Dart Decay sort of combo. Very similar to like what you do right here with a Viper Molly. So I think that's gonna, as you can see, I think there's a lot of diversity, but I think it's going to be Omen, Viper, Gecko, KO, KJ, and then pushing out the Clove. And then if you're playing solo controller, it would be Harbor, would kind of be the one that you'd have to go to. Just because of like this right here, Loki, this hallway. Because, you know, you can't really like take the bomb site here, as well as like you can smoke this, you can smoke this. The problem is you can be fought here, here, and a lot of other places. But who knows? Someone might try and go for like a solo Omen, and I think that wouldn't be like the worst thing. Lotus. Lotus is pretty simple. I think the default composition here is just going to be Omen, Gecko, Raze, Reach. I think you can slot in the Cypher, for sure. But I think that this is going to be the default comp, and then switch out Vapor Gecko. I think Viper on this map is kind of thick, because the main combo with Viper is to lurk over towards his A space late in the round, right? And this comp just completely makes this orb useless because you can fight through it, and past it, as well as you don't have smokes that you are going to be wasting smokes to default other places like the one-way C or like a smoke towards front B or something like that, to allow you to sort of like throw nano to break the overage right here or something like that. Not being able to smoke this is really bad, and yeah, I think the game plan for these teams is going to go to this. Right, we're going to be super aggressive. You're going to be setting traps. Like one of the traps here, right? Someone plays mound, Breach sits here, and just continues to flash through the mound, and your teammate on mound just won't be able to get blind, right? As well as being able to insta flash this and blind anyone going this way, as well as blind the other way, so anyone trying to swing out or tuck in is full blind. Being able to satchel on this guy is going to be really good. As well as Seize Nade is really good as well, but I think Gecko is super good on this map, especially because you are going to rotate through these two places a lot. So, yeah. I think playing another controller, you can get away with it, but I think the way that this map is, you sort of want to play it very slow and be able to have smokes regenerate and not fully commit them. So you can smoke, you can one-way smoke this to help you take C, or you could smoke this to help you take A. I think not being able to throw smokes later in the round is really bad. So I think Omen is just going to be the default one. And I think Clo doesn't have enough reach. But who knows? Who knows? You could see Clo be played on this map just because you're playing double initiator, and I think that that's where Clo really thrives, is double initiator situations, because you don't have to worry about not having an Omen blind. But realistically, I think it's just going to be Omen. But I'll put it up. I'll put them up there just in case. So, go to Split. Split is another one where I think it's kind of weird, right? Because yeah, you can get the normal like Viper setup, right? Where you do this. But at the same time, you would like to throw this and like pick it up and bring it back, right? And you can do a lot of different things on the map with this Viper orb. And not being able to pick it up is kind of ass. And it really impacts her gameplay on this map a lot. So I think realistically what you're going to see is you're going to see something like this, right? So you're going to see like Reach, Sky, Raise, then Cypher. I think there's really not a lot of other comps you could run. I think switching out Sky for Gecko isn't too bad. I personally really like Fade on this map, especially alongside the Breach, because you have that balance of info and hard flashes. But I think that this is going to be sort of the standard comp. I think Sky's always going to be like the queen of Split. Her utility just blends really well with how this map's designed. I think Gecko can be really good as well. I think what 100 Thieves is doing and innovating with the Gecko Fade combo, I think is really good. But I think on Split, I really prefer having Sky. And I think keeping Omen is important on this map. I think Astra can be pretty good. And I think some teams are going to switch over to the Astra if they go without a Sentinel. I think if you're going no Sentinel, you want to play Astra. And the reason why is because you kind of want someone to be able to hard anchor these sites rather than only play for trap plays. Pretty simple, but it's going to be it. As well as, I think the double controller, double list isn't terrible, but I think it's impacted by this as well. Because again, Viper is just not as good at stalling as she once was. So I would really prefer having a Sentinel on this map. I think it's where you're gonna see a lot of people go. And this really doesn't bother Sunset. I think Sunset is still gonna be dominated by the same comp. I think anyone not playing this comp is kind of brain dead. low key. But yeah, because this comp is it's just way too good on this map. It just runs super well. Raze, Omen, Breach, Fade, Cypher. I think the Gecko KO is decent, but I think KO kind of trips over himself in a lot of these positions because there's not a lot of great ways to use his utility in comparison to Breach, where you just throw it through a wall. And it's a lot easier, it's less clunky, and it feels more natural. And, you know, obviously, like, fault line here, right? Fault line down here, fault line down here, fault line here. Like there's just, and then like fault line here as well. You can go back here like this and fault line like this if they're trying to push towards elbow. Like there's a lot of different combos for his utility alongside, you know, the C's as well. Like you can aftershock this after getting C's, right? Boom, put aftershock here. You can aftershock through the pillar as well. If you go sort of shallow to stop the plant, hold back sight, things like that. So I think you're never going to see double controller on this map for sure. I think Sunset, Ascent, and Lotus are the three maps where you're just not going to see Viper at all. I think that these three maps are kind of a lock-in, at least for me, in my opinion, of no more double controller Viper. But I think Split, Icebox, Breeze, and Bind, you're going to see a very fair share of teams either committing to the Viper and sticking with it, or finding different options, finding different double controllers, kind of like the Charming Core or an Astra combo, which I think is actually pretty good, and it's shown that it's proven to work. But yeah, I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video, kind of my breakdown here. If you guys want me to make videos where I talk about the meta composition in detail and kind of show you guys strats to use in like Premiere or in scrims or in ranked or whatever, just let me know. I'd be definitely willing to do that. I think it'd be really fun. So leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.